Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mark. My name is Penelope, and I'm just delighted to be on here. Thank you for having me.
So you have to explain what a multi-potentialite is, because that was a new word. I had to Google it. What is that?
So there's a TEDx talk about it, actually. And so multi-potentialite. So multi means many, right?
Yeah.
Potential is you identify yourself with a lot of different potentials.
Okay, makes sense.
And in short, basically, a multi-potentialite may not necessarily have one true calling. So when you're asked what you want to be when you grow up, it's kind of okay to say astronaut, lawyer, doctor, scientist, pianist. You can be all of those, actually. So depending on the person, they could be a specialist and they could have, hey, this is exactly what I want to do.
Sure.
Or they could, change and grow and maybe create their own path. And it's okay to be both. So I'm a self-identified multi-potentialite. I have lots of interests and I like to learn a lot of things and dig deep, learn more, and switch. And my career path has also taken me on many journeys of that nature.
I'm going to guess that if there's other organizers that are listening to this, that definition defines what it means to be a TEDx organizer. Right, because as curators, we're encouraged to have a lot of different ideas. Like, we don't do a show about a single idea. Now, this is a salon and we can talk about one idea, but when we do live shows, we have 10, 12 different ideas with different speakers, and that's a part of the joy of it. Now, I remember at one of your previous jobs, you had you produced TEDx inside a business. Now, for our audience, explain how that's a little different, and then I want to kind of break it out into the diversity of ideas.
Yeah, internal TEDx events are similar to the ones that you have like this one. The only difference is the talks are only viewed internally and you still get that independent license. You still have to organize it. You still have to honor the TED rules, the TED brand. You still have to look for volunteers and have to vet your sponsors, even if it's internal. And, breaking down silos was important because you'd be surprised how many silos disappear when you create that space, because everybody knows what TED is. And then when you bring it to your organization, there's that sense of excitement that you create a community with people instead of for them. And they have that chance to shape it, grow it, and it grows on its own, even when you've gone. So that's my experience in that world. And a lot of that was done virtually. Even before the pandemic, to be honest, it's not physically possible for all of us to see each other, meet each other, let alone travel and be inclusive of all the countries in a global corporation like that. So those virtual super collaborators came out and picked themselves to join, lead, and do these events globally, locally, on a grassroots level. But it was so much more than that. It made this community of change makers that, like I said, was constantly growing and doing things on its own once they were empowered to do so.
So I'm going to guess from what you've just said, because I remember talking to you before, there were a lot of internal events going on all the time. You had a really big crew. So there was a lot going on. You had to figure out how to collaborate virtually. Now, 2 years ago, the whole world was forced, maybe 30%, I don't know the number, but some number of people, what was low, had ever even had a virtual meeting before, had ever even understood how to do that. So you were kind of a black belt at that already. Over the last 2 years, what have you seen, or rather different, how have you helped people become better collaborators? Because you've moved on from that position. What are the things we need to do to be super collaborators in a virtual world?
I think it's all about rewiring, to be honest. The pandemic forced us to rewire ourselves, right? perhaps when all of us come in to the working world, we're wired a certain way to think collaboration looks like X.
Yeah.
When really it can look like whatever we want it to look like. COVID forced us to rewire ourselves. And I think it encouraged the virtual collaborators that were already collaborating to continue to do that so that their connections are not devalued when they cannot meet face to face, or the strength of that virtual team is the same as if you had that opportunity face to face. Why wait to make that human connection till you meet face to face? What if you can't? Then you're putting that on pause, and you don't want to do that. Then you're limiting yourself, missing out. So I would say don't wait. For those of you that are already doing it, continue doing it. The ones that are new to it, think of it as a new opportunity. Just like when you get dressed, go in your car, go to work, go to your events, you prepare for it, right? There's a place prepared for you that you meet at. This virtual space that we're in right now, it's actually more personal because you invited me to be on your show. I'm here in my space, the video's on. We are choosing to make this connection and communicate and connect in this way. And I think that is very powerful. I'm not saying you need to turn your camera on all the time, people get tired, but that initial connection, face to face may not happen. Okay to have virtual coffee. Try it. Don't knock it till you try it. You might surprise yourself and you may actually like it.
Have you found it has been my experience over the last 2 years working in, well, let's say more than just the one-on-one, but 3, 4, 5, 30 people at a time, that there's a challenge at getting everybody to feel like they're a part of it. Like if we are in a room, I can kind of glance and read the room, and I'm pretty good at getting people to participate. What kind of tricks do you have for leaders who are trying to figure out how to get more out of this collaborative environment?
I think it's a mix of what we're doing now with the video and the use of technology after this, just like a TED Talk, hashtag ideas worth spreading. But then the best stuff happens after this is over. People want to continue that connection after TED Fest, after other events. People want to continue to connect. So create a space for that, whether it's a Slack platform or another Teams community, whatever it is. Create a shared notebook if you need to, but allow people that space across time zones, across their schedules, to allow for that, because not everyone in the room is going to speak up, even if they're in the room. So it's the cultural thing too of the team, and not just geography. Not just geography. I'm not talking about geographical culture, APAC versus us versus EMEA and LATAM. I mean the culture of a team. Maybe a new team is reluctant to speak up at first.
Yeah.
But once you create that space, then they'll speak up. And there's always going to be people that always speak and people that always don't. So how do you engage those people that have something to say, but there's not enough time to say it, or perhaps there's not a space for them to express it? And that's where I think you can take advantage of a virtual team and the tools that a virtual team would use in order to stay connected, remain connected, and keep that connection.
What do you think? I'm thinking this rewiring has got me thinking that there's this story that we tell ourselves that I can only be collaborative if I'm standing at the whiteboard and I'm leading people through. And that's just a story I'm telling myself that's probably not true, because there are virtual whiteboards. As you were speaking, I was reminded of Susan Cain and her famous TED Talk about the quiet revolution and the difference between introverts and extroverts. And she introduced us to a new term, the ambivert, which I self-identify as an ambivert. Have you found in your experience that the introverts, is there a way to have them feel connected, even though, as you said, there's going to be people who stay quiet? Have you found some tips for having them feel connected, even if they want to stay quiet?
I'm an introvert, even though I'm friendly. But I know some folks that are introverts that are reluctant to speak up. I trained myself to speak up and be this way. I honestly think sometimes you need to encourage those people to connect. And then it's up to them. Like I said, they may want to just do it virtually via a survey, anonymous survey, or a book. If you put a book somewhere, a shared notebook, maybe they can type in it or write in it or message you or leave something there when you're not looking. And then when you come back, you find it. Oh, this person did all this. Or even a shared Google document. You create a space for them to collaborate and share their ideas, but not necessarily in front of everyone. Maybe it flies under the radar in a way where they can even do it when it's outside of the meeting, outside of a time zone, whenever. And again, I think it's that use of the virtual tools that introverts may actually gravitate toward if they feel safe enough to go there.
You hit the key word there, which is that the leader needs to have create a safe space. Safe meaning it's okay to raise it's okay to have a bad or crazy idea. It's okay to have like that culturally is really challenging. You were talking about culture earlier. Having a culture of safety where all the ideas are good, you're not going to get, oh yeah, come on, that's a crazy idea, shut up. You know, that kind of thing ends up stifling. So I think we could agree that safety is important. And I think there was something else you said, like having this place where you could go right on the wall. What I've learned is asynchronous communication is actually conducive to hybrid collaboration. So having these ways to contribute in an ongoing basis, so that if you are a little shy, then let me add this. So I'm agreeing with everything you said. Where are you on recognition of an idea that's proffered by someone who's normally quiet to say, hey, that idea that Emily had that I read, Emily, that was pretty good. Do you think, have you found in your experience that helps them kind of build that muscle a little bit?
Yes. And I think depending on the culture, it's good to give a heads up, because some people, they'll be afraid to, oh my gosh, I'm in the spotlight, let me run away now, because I've actually been one of those people running away. But you know, I think understanding that, talking about how the idea helps everybody, and then recognizing them but giving them a heads up, saying, I'd like you to present this idea, and hey, you know, I can TED coach you if you like, if they're like afraid of speaking, and empower them to do it and give them that voice if they're ready, and realize not everyone may be there. Sometimes you have to say, look, this great idea, and then maybe you don't say their name, but you put their name on a slide and you add it to the team, so they're on there, but maybe they don't want to be called out. It kind of depends on the person. I think it depends on the person, but you
That's
want
a
to encourage them
sensitivity.
slowly.
That's a sensitivity for leaders that they need to work on.
I know I keep working on it, and I have to ask sometimes and just learn, trial and error. Sometimes it's sensitive, but I think people appreciate when you ask and just give a heads up sometimes. But some people need that recognition because they were never given it before, or perhaps no one recognized them for their ideas, or they thought it was too crazy to mention, and then they're encouraged to do it again. So I definitely think some form of recognition is important, and trying to do it as close as possible in real time is important, even if it's just one-on-one with that person, and then say, hey, I want to mention this to the team. Are you willing to you know, here's the slide I'm going to present with your name on it, or whatever it is, you know, just run it by them. But in real time, tell them, even if it's a message, if they're, especially if you know they're quiet or introverted, as much as possible in real time, encourage that, because that's how you get your best ideas.
I love that. What is it? You use the word super collaborator in our, you know, can you quickly What's the difference between a collaborator and a super collaborator?
I think a super collaborator is someone that thinks about what's going to happen after the collaboration, because it's not a checkbox. So to me, a virtual super collaborator is a relationship builder that is looking for a connection, say like this, but then what happens after that? How do you keep it going? Virtual tools, virtual communities, virtual teams. So hence I just threw the word super in front of there, thinking it's extra.
Well, we live in a Marvel universe, right? Penelope, thank you so much for helping us understand these. A bunch of new words for me today.
Thanks.